So hopefully the links have been sorted there. Thank you so much for your patience. And the idea of the live classroom is that you get to see one of your teachers. Unfortunately, Lynn and I can't be here together because, as you know, we are actually both in our own homes. So thank you, Evan, for saying hi, and I'm going to say hi back. Great that you've seen the live chat, and I'm really pleased it works. Now, the idea of the classroom is that you can see me, but I can't see any of you. Now, I know there are people in the classroom because I can see the number. So if you can just say hi, that will let me know who is here today. And just so that you know what's happening in today's classroom, I'm going to go through the Google Slides that you've been given. And I'm also going to do some work on looking at a text type and sentences that we would write. So a bit of revision. Oh, hi Summer, it's good to see you. And nice that you're all in the classroom here. So you can see by looking at the screen that we're actually thinking about a sentence. What is a sentence? So can you let me know if you can't see the PowerPoint, because we have moved the screen slightly whilst we've been sorting out the links. So just behind me you should be able to see that there is a PowerPoint, and that is just showing you what the Google Slides will look like when you go onto your piece of work. So it's all about what a sentence is. You can't change those. Oh, hi, that's good. Oh, I beg your pardon, and no wonder I didn't recognize your name. I do apologize. It's good to see you here. And the Google Slides you can't change, so you can't write on the slides. So I'm just going to show you them. But you are able to edit, so you can add a slide at the bottom to put your own writing. How are we all feeling today? So I was feeling a little bit unhappy today because the classroom didn't work, and that made me feel a little bit anxious there. So how are you all feeling? Are you happy? Are some of you still a little bit frightened or worried? Just write a little bit there to say, how are you feeling today? Because I spoke to somebody this morning in the classroom, and they said that they were still really quite worried. But we just all have to work together. And don't worry if you can't get on the classroom at the time we would normally do class. Some of you have done some really good pieces of work already. Oh, I'm happy to see you too. Thank you for that. Yes. And can I just say that I marked your spelling this morning, and everybody got between 70 to 100 marks. So very well done. Yes. So going back to the slides, you're looking at a sentence that it's a complete thought, and we're thinking about it making sense and your structure. Don't worry if you can't see the PowerPoint behind me in detail, because this is the work that you've been given on the Google Slides, so you'll be able to go into the work to see that. So a sentence should start with a capital letter is our next part, and there are some examples there of the sentences that you would have, and this is followed by the end reminder. Oh, wait a moment, we have a nice oh, lovely, all feeling pretty good. Happy to see you. Yay, I'm happy because I think it's a good way to learn. Oh, thank you, that's really good, Soma. It is a good thing to learn. However, I'm really relying on you to tell me what bits I need to change, because this is the first time we've done a classroom like this, and it may be that there are things you can't see. Oh, hi Hero, that's good to see you. How are you? Good, I hope. Yes? And the length of the classroom, I will just keep going until I've completed the work we're doing, and I just want you to decide how long you can stay in the classroom. But just really brilliant that you're here. So don't worry about anything. It's really nice that we see you're on. So I'm going back to the slides that you're going to be looking at. You're going to get a set of slides that looks like this, and it's just revising your sentences. So when you get to the slide that says complete the sentence, you won't actually be able to change it. So you have to do a slide at the bottom. Oh, Gashor, I really miss you in class as well. I really miss everybody in class. So I'm hoping that doing the class this way, even though I can't see you, I see some lovely messages there to tell me how you're feeling and that you're happy to be together this afternoon. So going back to the Google Slides, you'll find you can't write on them. I can't write on that slide. It's got some questions. It's asking me to add some words, but I can't actually write on it. So what I have to do is get to the end of the slides after looking at the subject and verb and how important that is, and then add a slide of my own. So once you've done that, you add a slide of your own. You can close the work. You've all got a different set of slides. So whatever you write on it, only you can see it and I can see it. So don't send it anywhere. Finish the slides, close it. And when you're doing a piece of writing, check these questions. So you're thinking, does my sentence start with a capital letter? Yes, I know you know sentences start with a capital letter, but sometimes we're forgetting to put it. And does your sentence end with the correct punctuation mark? Because you're looking at level 2 and below, I would be thinking about, are you using that exclamation mark at the end, not just are you doing a full stop or a question mark? And does your sentence include a main subject? Most of you are doing this already, so we want you to think about the sentence structure that we're going to look at later. And does your sentence have a verb? Because we talk about it's not really a sentence if we haven't got a verb. So that was a really quick rush through the Google Slides that you have for a piece of work. So I want you to think about when you're doing your piece of work, you can't write on the slides, but you can add a slide, and that's quite important. Are there any questions about that piece of work? Has anybody not got on it yet? You'll see later. I'm just going to disappear from the screen because I'm actually looking for the next part of the work. So what we're going to do next, I'm just going to say hi to everybody again, just to make sure we haven't all fallen asleep. I haven't bored you to death. Yes, so hi. And we're going to look at this. Now this book that I'm going to share with you is all about our sentence structures, because I use the word clause. So a clause. A clause, it's a single idea or an event. So for example, I might say, the knight killed the dragon. So that's one clause, and that actually is a simple sentence. So when I use the word clause, when I'm talking about sentences, I'm actually talking about one idea. So a clause is the same as having a simple sentence. Now, if you're on work that you're looking towards level 1 or level 2, you're going to be looking at a number of clauses in the sentences that you write. So we'll come on to complex sentences later. But this is just a revision to say that a clause has only one verb. And that's how you know you've got that right. Oh, hi, it's good to see you. So let's have a look at this sentence, which at the beginning is a statement and at the end is turned into a question. So, the knight killed the dragon. Yes, so you can work out there that your verb is killed. Now that's a statement because it's a piece of information written as a sentence. Now to change it into a question, we just change the words around and we use did. Did the knight kill the dragon? You still have the verb, but it's changed its tense. So when we're looking at sentences, I want you to think about a simple sentence is one clause. It has a verb. The verb will be in a different tense when you change that verb to a sentence. Is everybody okay with that? So let's have a look at the subject. So the subject in the clause, we all know that's going to be the knight, and the clause might have further detail. So when you're looking at that simple sentence there, I might expect you to write that if you're looking at entry level 1 or entry level 2. So we're going to be looking at how do we connect our clauses, because this is the type of sentence we really ought to be writing, and that's a clause with a lot more detail. One misty morning, the handsome knight in shining armour killed the ferocious dragon outside its mountain lair. Now, the extra detail, it's either going to be adjectives or adverbs, but the most important thing is it doesn't matter what length it is. It's a clause if it has one verb. So as long as it's got one verb, it's a clause and it's a simple sentence. And you know, when you look at that sentence, you might think, oh, that's not simple. Look how long it is. So I want you to learn that a simple sentence has one verb. And here we have only got the verb killed. So when you're looking at your sentences and you think you're writing complex sentences, check, have I got one verb? Because if I've only got one verb and I've written a lot of information, I've probably written a simple sentence. I hope that bit makes sense, but if you've got any questions, please write them on the chat and we'll have a look at that, because I'm going to look at next 2 words that I've used in class that sometimes are quite difficult. So I'm going to use the word subordinate. So we've just talked about clause. If we think of the clause as having one verb, it's like having a simple sentence. We've now got to think about what's a subordinate clause and what's a main clause, because this is the bit that's going to help you write better sentences. So we're going to start off with this word, subordinate. So the subordinate clause, this is the one where you can't leave it as a sentence. It's not a simple sentence. It doesn't make sense on its own. So, when he killed the dragon, the knight felt strange. Can you see that? There's an arrow there that shows you that the subordinate clause is the information that can't be a sentence on its own. So when he killed the dragon, doesn't make sense because it doesn't really tell me what's happening. It's just saying when. So we divide the sentence into the idea of subordinate and main. So if this is the subordinate clause, the bit that's still a clause because it's got a verb, yes, then this bit is the main clause because this bit could be a full sentence. The night felt strange. I could put a full stop there and that would work as a sentence. And that's the difference between your subordinate clause, when you can't use it as a full sentence, and your main clause, when you can use it as a full sentence. So remember that your subordinate clause, just one idea, it's all about time, but it doesn't make sense on its own. But if you add the subordinate clause to the main clause, then it makes sense. Now, the subordinate clause can go at the beginning of the main clause or the end of the main clause. Let's see if it would work as a sentence. At the beginning, when he killed the dragon, the night felt strange. That works. Now let's try it at the end. The night felt strange when he killed the dragon. That works. And then you've just got to remember your capital letter and your full stop. And did you notice something about the punctuation? This is really important, especially at level 2, when you're looking at, are you using commas correctly? When you have a subordinate clause, you have to use a comma. So, when he killed the dragon, the night felt strange. So, when he killed the dragon, comma, the night felt strange. So make sure you remember to do that. That's quite a lot of information there. So I want you to remember the word clause. Understand that a clause is like having a simple sentence. And understand that it only has one verb. And that we put all these clauses together to make our larger sentences, and I think that's what's going to work for level 2 if you start looking at how have I written my sentence. So let's just have a quick revision of main clause. So your main clause, one idea, makes sense on its own, and it could be a simple sentence. And what I'll do is I will record this live class so that you can go back over it at any point if there's anything you want to revise. And hello to those people who've just joined us. Please let us know who you are by just saying hi. And just a reminder, you can see me, but I can't see you. I can see how many people are in the classroom, and thank you to people who've already written something for me, because that tells me who you are. But nobody in the classroom can see each other, just the teacher. So that makes that safe for you to be sitting anywhere in your house or on your phone or on your laptop. So the part of the work today that we're thinking about, hello, good to see you, is the main and subordinate clauses go together. That's what makes your complex sentence. Not how long it is, not whether it's a bigger sentence, but have you added main clause and subordinate clause? And sometimes you have more than one of those in a complex sentence, and we'll have a look at that later. So there are several sorts of clauses that you can use, but we're just going to cover that part for today, and we will go on to have a look at how that works in terms of the different types of sentences you can use, because I want to move on to think about your writing. Now, I've asked 3 of you, you know who you are, to send me an email, and I've given you an email address that you can send that to. And that's because I'm going to be marking how you send an email. So when you send it as a piece of work, as an email to me as the teacher, and I'll be looking at your sentences Do you vary sentences? That means, do you use a simple sentence perhaps at the beginning or the end, and then different sentences in between? And I have sent you an email to let you know what to write. If you're not sure, you can send me an email. You just have to go onto the classroom and send me a message, or if it's clear on the classroom what my email address is, you can send it to that. So I'll write my email address up at the end for you so you can see what that is. But we're going to move on now to looking at how do we put together a recount text. Oh, hi Amelia, good to see you. And the recount text, this just means talking about something that has happened. And I just want to look at the structure, because this is the structure that we would be marking you for. So I'm just going to disappear one moment whilst I get my book. So do let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow for you, because this is a practice lesson really. It's the first lesson we've had. Little bit strange for me because I can't see anybody. I just see all your messages. So thank you very much for writing something there. But for you, you should all be able to see me. You can't see each other. The next part of the lesson is going to be about recount text, because I've asked you to send me a piece of writing that's all about something that has happened to you. So here you can see that a recount text retells events. That's what recount means. And it's in time order. And we call that chronological. So I'm going to have a quick flick through this here. Let's see if you can see. This is the spidergram. You might not be able to see all of it. Let's divide it into two. And the spidergram tells you what's a recount text. Well, you have letter, that's a recount text. Biography, non-fiction, encyclopedia, newspaper report, diary, or magazine article. So if you're asked to write any of those pieces of writing in your functional skills exam, I'm just going to go through what the language features are, the things that you need to include. And these are all called recount text, because the way that you organise it is in time order. So Lynn and I will have told you that for the introduction you have to use your question words. You have to answer the questions: when, where, who, what, and why. Why is about how significant, how important is the event that you're writing about. So this is a really important thing to think about. Why was it significant? Because you have to choose which bits to write and which bits to leave out. So that's really quite important to think in your introduction. Then you will be adding the middle information, and at the end you will have your conclusion. And what happened in the end, and thinking about a really good last line is how you should end any of those pieces of text. Yes, so the ones that we looked at, look back over it, make sure you know it's your letter, your newspaper report, your diary. So a really good last sentence. This is where your knowledge of sentences comes in, because if you conclude with a simple sentence, it has real impact, and that's what's important about your writing. So something to leave for the end sentence that you think you could add. So, can I send you an exam links or mock tests? Yes, of course I can, Gashos. So I won't do that now, but as soon as this classroom is finished, I will make sure that I send that. So would you like some links or examples of reading and writing? So if you just come up on the text there and tell me, yes, you would like reading and writing, or just writing, or just reading, that would be good. And we're looking at the language now, because when you are asked to write this in your exam, if you're asked to write a letter, or if you're asked to write an article, the examiner's looking for past tense. That's really important. Make sure that your tense remains constant. You've got that the same. They're looking at, have you named people, places and things? And it should be in the first or third person. If you're not sure what that means, send me a quick note and I'll explain that to you. It should be in the first or third person. And your connectives are really important. So this is where the sentences comes in again. Time connectives. Do you know what those time connectives are? Well, let's have a look at some of reading and writing. Good, yes, well, I will do that. So when this classroom is finished, I will look up some links for you. If I can't find some links, I'll add some documents that are examples of the reading and writing, and I will make sure that on there's difference between entry 3, level 1 and level 2. Yes, that's very kind of you to say please. Of course I will, yes. So the thing that's important next that I want you to take a note of are the time connectives that you need to use in your piece of writing, because this will make your writing structured in the way that your examiners are expecting. So say it is a letter that you're writing. When you're putting that letter together and you've done your introduction, you've thought of your ideas in the middle, and you come to the end and you write a really good last line. Yes, what I will do, thank you for asking that, of course I will do that for you too. I will place it on the Google Classroom so that everybody can see that. And then if there's anything that's not there, just send me a message and we'll get that sorted. Thank you, Jane, I need both. Thank you, yes, thank you, Geshua, yes, I will do that. So take a note of these. I bet you're using some of these already. I wonder if you're using all of them. So these are your language features, what we expect to see in a recount text. So we expect to see next. It does say then there, but I wouldn't use then very often at all, because I think that's a very simplified time connective that I would probably expect to see round about entry level. Yes, so meanwhile, that's a really good level 2 language feature. So think about making sure you understand what that means and how to write it. If you're talking about an amount of time, try to use the phrase several weeks later, or several days later, or even soon afterwards. That's a really good one to do. And if you're writing about something that's about a day, you might say within hours. Yes, I say that actually when I'm talking. Oh, I managed to do it within days, within hours, within minutes. So we use that phrase, using within, to talk about an amount of time. And then finally, for the language connectives, I really like after a while. Now, while is a really good word to use when you're writing, and it can be used in two ways. You can say after a while, then it's talking about time, or you can talk about when two things are happening at the same time. And then finally, I use finally because this is quite a good word to use. I really don't like that phrase in conclusion. that's just a personal dislike. I think you can write finally instead. And then, as well as this, you need to think about your conjunctions. So you need to think about when, while, as, and after. So make sure when you're writing your text and it's recount, these are the features that you need for language. So I think what we will do next, as people have asked for exam examples, I think our next lesson we'll actually have a look at an exam question that will be based on a recount text, so that we can link these ideas together. So, what does the word impersonal mean? Can anybody tell me? I'm looking now at the live chat to see if anybody can tell me what impersonal means, because we all do know what personal means. Can anybody tell me what impersonal means? And while we're looking to see if someone's writing there, we'll go back to this word recounts. If you recount it, it means that you are telling somebody something that has already happened. So impersonal, if you're not sure, look at the word personal. What does personal mean? That means that it's something relevant to you, and when it's personal, it usually has feelings, your feelings that you have about an event or some information. If it's impersonal, this means it's the opposite to personal. So let's have a look at what those types of text are. So for example, a newspaper report is impersonal, because if you're writing a newspaper report, you shouldn't be writing it from yourself, your views, your feelings, because you're writing it as a report and it should be unbiased. If you're not sure about the use of bias, do drop me a lesson in the classroom so that I can put some work together to help you with understanding bias. Another impersonal piece of writing that you might get asked to do is an article. That means you're not supposed to write it from a personal point of view because it's impersonal. And whilst we won't be doing this, we're not going to be writing books, that is an impersonal piece of writing. So a non-fiction book we often call a book about facts. Have a look at it if you want to think about what does impersonal mean, and that should give you the best idea of what that means. And then biography. I'm not going to ask you to write a biography. Do you know the difference between autobiography and biography? Yes, Gushaw. Separate? You do separate your emotions from the actual work. Does it mean public? Well, I think that's a good question, because it does really mean not having your own views in there. So I think that if you mean by public that you're putting together something that anybody might see it like, yes, that's quite good. And right after that, we're going to look at audience and purpose. So thank you, Gashaw. And who else has written? Because I can see your email address and I'm sure that's not your name. So if you've just written the question about what it means, that was a really good question. Please let me know your name so that I don't get that wrong. So a quick pause, and then we're going to go on to audience and purpose. Now, I heard Lynn talking to you about this because it's very important when you're doing your reading. So I know you've done work on this. Who can tell me what the word audience means? So can you just put a text? Oh, Hero, how good to see you. Yes, I will remember that. Thank you. That was a really good question, Hero. And if you think of it in that way, it does help you separate the idea of yourself from the work that you're doing. I think, Gashor, that was quite good that you used that word there. So, audience. Let's see if you can write on the live chat what you think audience means. Now remember, on live chat we can see it, but when I copy the video, I don't put the live chat on. That's just for us. Nobody else can see the video, so it doesn't matter if you get something wrong. This video is just for our class, Lynn and myself. That's our class. You're welcome. Yes, well done, Gashor. That's good. So let's have a look at audience. What do you think audience means? You understand. What do you understand it to be? Who's the audience when you're writing something? Who do you think the audience is? Because do you know, when you go to the theatre, we use this word a lot, audience. It's all the people who are sat watching the play. So when you're writing something, who's your audience? I wonder if you can find the word. I know you know it. It's quite possible you just haven't written it. And it begins with the letter R. Who's the audience? So let's have a look. Yes. So the audience is the general reader who's got some interest in what you've written. So the audience for your exam is going to actually be the examiner, and their interest is how well have you written that piece of work. So that's what they're going to be marking. Your audience, if you're actually writing something for Lynn or for me, then we're your audience, and we're also looking for how well have you written that piece of work. And then we talk a lot about purpose. Why have you done it? So for the recount text, we're looking at inform and entertain. So if you're recounting something and you're writing a letter, you're most likely informing. That's really important. You're not writing your letter to entertain anyone. But if you're writing a book, we do consider that might be entertainment. So we're going to move on to the personal recounts. Now we said that impersonal meant, thank you for that, Gashor, yes. I do know you, that's right, that's good. I'm glad that you're writing on the chat as well, that's useful. And we're actually going to look at personal recounts. So this is the opposite. This is when it is something you're writing that is personal to you. So you might write a letter to a friend. So we call that informal, don't we? We say it's an informal letter to a friend. You might write a diary or a journal extract. That's also personal. And you might write about a trip or an activity. I think I might also ask you to write about how are things going now, because we're all actually in our homes, and I trust everybody is well and that all your families are well and you're all looking after each other. So if I asked you to write, tell me about how things have been this week, you would write a personal account. So that's quite important. Now we're going to actually just finish by thinking about sentence length. The readers, yes, well done. That is absolutely spot on, Gashor. It is the reader. And when you're writing, it's really, really important that you remember your reader, because even if it's a piece of writing that's not for the exam. Somebody's going to read that, and you want to interest them, and you want to do what we call lively writing. And I know that I've been really interested by pieces of writing that you've actually done in the classroom. So you can all do it. All we're doing today is looking at how can we get it right for knowing the language features and the structure for the exam. So let's have a look at this one. I use this phrase all the time. Vary your sentences. Vary your thought. So vary, it means change. Don't use the same length of sentence all the time or the same structure. So sentence length. If you're writing at entry level 3, you can still write different lengths of sentences. If you're writing at level 2, you need to write different lengths of sentences because your examiner has to see that you understand the 3 different types: the simple sentence, the compound sentence, and the complex sentence. And you've got to do that in every piece of writing. Make sure, don't think, oh, simple sentences, that's for people who are not on the same level as I am. Actually, once you reach level 1 to 2, you need to show a simple sentence, even if you just use it once. And I think when you get to level 2, the difference is that you've got to choose where to use it for what we call impact. Now, impact on your reader means, why is that really important information? What is that really important information? Where is it going to go? So sentence length, very important when you're writing. Now, we haven't done the next one yet, but we will be looking at it, and we call it sentence openings. This means when you look at the first word of the sentence that you write, we need to start looking at what type of word are you using, which word class are you using, and how well does it help structure your piece of writing, and are the sentence openings different. So you could start this one by looking at pieces of writing that you do and looking at the first word of every sentence and asking yourself, have I varied? Have I made each one different? My sentence openings, have I started each sentence differently? And if you haven't, that's a really urgent thing to be moving on to. The thing that we have touched on is sentence type, because we have talked about the 4 types of sentences, but we can come back to that to check that you understand what the 4 types are. And what's really important, even if you're writing a letter, it's remembering that you should use the occasional question or exclamation. So when you're writing, particularly at level 2, your writing has to show what you're able to do. So I know you know how to write a question, and I know you understand exclamations, but the examiner hasn't seen any of your writing before, so they really need to see an example of a question and an exclamation. And I think it's really good to draw it all together, because at this stage, when you were talking to Lynn about reading and looking at language features, you're also thinking about rhetorical questions. So that comes into this part of using your writing. So finally, try to link your last line back to the introduction. It's really important that you understand the opening of your piece of writing is as important as the end of your piece of writing. And I'm going to leave you with the structure that we talk about when we talk about practice. I'm sure you've heard us say this phrase a lot. Practice, practice, practice. Do you know, I was on Facebook the other day. I know it's terrible, I use Facebook. I was on Facebook the other day and somebody had posted, practice makes perfect. This is not actually true. None of us are perfect. What practice makes is improvement. So the more you practice, the more chance you have of improving. So I just want to show you this bit. And we use the word rehearse. Now you probably do this with your speaking and listening. Practice it. Oh, just rehearse this. How does that go? Or say to your friend, or whilst you're at home, it'll be somebody in the family, oh, will you rehearse this with me? Will you just practice this with me? But what we forget is that you actually need to do this when writing. You do need to practice. You do need to rehearse how you would write a letter, how you would write an article, how you would write a report. So first of all, rehearse the bits that you want to add in. Make sure that you write them and then reread them. And all of the things that we've looked at today, all of these are part of how do you complete a piece of writing and rehearse it and write it and reread it and make it better. To start off with, it feels quite false. You think, right, well, I've reread it. Now I'm going to look at my sentence starters. Now I'm going to look at what types of sentences have I got. But once you get into that habit of doing that with your writing, you're going to find that it'll come a lot easier. So I think for next lesson, it might be useful for me to look at an exam question that is a recount, because it can pull all this information together. And then in the meantime, thank you for everybody who asked about links and examples of questions, and I'll get those put up on the Google Classroom, and I'll ask Lynn to help me with that because she's also been doing a lot of work there. And I'm going to show you this skeleton note-taking framework, because when you write, you're expected to plan. It doesn't matter how you plan, you just need to do it. So what I usually suggest is do it the way that works for you. So you could do a flow chart, just do I'm writing this, this and then this. You could do it as a strip or a comic strip if you've got time. I don't think you have time in the exam, but if you're just kind of doodling at home, that makes it a little bit more interesting to you, please do that. You could do it as a clock face. This is really interesting, this one, because you're looking at your introduction being here and then your conclusion, and you're deciding what's going to go in between. You could write it on post-it notes. This is the one that I favour. You choose. You might write it as a spidergram, but the one that I like is the post-it notes, because you can write it on a card or a post-it note and then you can just swap this round. So when you're practicing your sentences, obviously you can't swap the conclusion with the introduction. They've got to stay in the same place. But when you're thinking about what goes in the middle of that piece of writing, if you've done them on little cards like this, you can move it about, and that helps you see that when you're doing a piece of writing, the structure is important, because it's about what you think is the most logical order and which bit is most interesting. So I'm going to add now a quick goodbye, but do you know, because you've all been really friendly on here, I'm not going to say goodbye, I'm going to say bye, because this is a shortened version, isn't it, of goodbye. So bye, and I'm also going to say look after yourselves, because do you know, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after other people. And I know that, like me, you've probably got family at home that you're looking after, and we really appreciate any time that you keep this contact with us in the classroom. Do remember that you don't have to go on the classroom at the time that we do usually have a class, but if you do, we'll be there with a live feed. And thank you for your patience, because it doesn't always work. If it doesn't work the first time, I'll be working really hard to get that sorted for you. So Avin says thanks. Thank you too. Yes, it's good to see you, and let's have a few more questions next time. Thank you, Soma. You're welcome. And anything that you write. So today I've learned you'd really like to have some exam papers. That's really useful for me. Bye, Soma. See you soon. We hope. Now, none of us know when that will be. So I'm hoping that I will see you in the next live classroom. And remember, you have, I think, Lynn's number, and you probably know my number in WhatsApp. So please use that to get in touch. Oh, Avin, thank you very much. I don't know where you found those lovely flowers from. And thanks, and see you soon. You are welcome. Bye now. Bye, everybody.